Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Catch, Hook, and Shoot. Today is Sunday, May 26th, 2019. Thanks to everybody for listening and subscribing on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and right here live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time on Twitch. And make sure you're following on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and LinkedIn at Catch, Hook, Shoot on all of those platforms. Hope everybody has checked out the Catch, Hook, and Shoot Patreon page. It's patreon.com/catchhookshoot. We've got 4 different tiers there with some pretty cool benefits on each one. We've got a $1, $5, $10, and $20 tier for anybody interested in that. Head on over to patreon.com/catchhookshoot and check that out. And also make sure to check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/catchhookshoot. We've got 4 pretty cool designs there that I designed myself, so head on over, check those out, pick one up. And again, like I said before, any money that is generated from either one of those sites goes back into the show for upgrades and travel to conventions, events, things like that. So hope everybody will check those things out. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. And want to mention again about the Wrestling Behind Ringside Fan Fest 2020 coming up next year, July 25th of 2020. That is on a Saturday. There will be 2 shows, an 8 a.m. and a 2 p.m. The Super VIP tickets, again, will go on sale June the 7th of 2019. So just a couple of weeks here, those will be going on sale. Now, the Super VIP tickets are $200 each. Those include 15 photo ops, which that alone is worth the $200 price tag on those. Now, it does not include photo ops with the 2 surprise WWE Hall of Fame guests. Again, those are surprise guests, so they won't be announced. It'll be obviously a surprise, but trust me, definitely worth the price. You'll also receive a tote bag, collector cup, wristband, priority entry into both shows with the Super VIP tickets. And the so far the superstars that have been announced for the show thus far are Pretty Paul Roma, formerly of WWE and WCW, as well as the Patriot Del Wilkes. So. And there'll be more announcements coming in the coming weeks for superstars and legends and Hall of Famers that are going to be a part of that show. And head on over to WrestlingBehindRingside.com for all the information and tickets when they go on sale and things like that. And don't forget, I will be having a Break the Code contest for 2 VIP tickets starting in July. Now, these are not the Super VIP tickets. I think I might have got my wires crossed last week when I was talking about this, but these are 2 VIP tickets, which basically it'll be for either the 8 a.m. or the 2 p.m. show, not both. But starting in July, we'll be having a contest, and I will be giving out basically a keyword every week. And at the end of the contest, however many weeks it runs for, you put all those words together in the proper order, and send in your answer once you have broken the code. And for everybody that sends in a correct answer, we put all the names into a bowl, and I do a live drawing right here on the show. And whoever's name gets drawn out is the winner for 2 of the VIP tickets. Now, that does not include travel or accommodations, so you would have to handle your own transportation to Louisiana and your own accommodations there. But like I said, it includes entry into either the 8 a.m. or the 2 p.m. show, and the photo ops and all that kind of good stuff. So keep tuning in for that. Like I said, it'll be starting in July with that. I'm looking at probably 4th of July weekend, hopefully, to start putting those code words out there. Like I said, you put all the words together in the proper order, send it in to either the email or Twitter. I'm not sure which one. I'll definitely be making that announcement, how to submit your answers beforehand. But yes, like I said, everybody who submits the correct answer will have their names put into a drawing to get a pair of VIP tickets for the WBR Fan Fest 2020. So keep listening for that. So let's get into what's been going on here this week in wrestling. I'm going to kind of blow through the some stuff pretty quick here to get to the big story of this week. But Money in the Bank happened last week. We saw Bayley win the Money in the Bank women's match, and then later on cashed in on Charlotte, who defeated Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's title. Bayley cashed in on Charlotte, and Bayley is your new SmackDown Women's Champion. So, bit of a surprise there, but definitely a welcome one. So we'll have to see how Bayley fares as your new SmackDown Women's Champion. As far as the men's Money in the Bank match, it was a great match up until about the last 2 minutes. We saw Brock Lesnar come in and basically just climb the ladder and take the briefcase. So Brock Lesnar is now Mr. Money in the Bank. Personally, not real fond of that outcome. I liked the fact that Ali was up there alone, had his hands on the briefcase. I really thought Ali was going to be the winner at that point before Brock came out. I would have loved to see Ali take the briefcase and, kind of get back into the title picture that was kind of taken away from him when he had an injury. It's not like it was taken away from him maliciously or something like that. It just, he was injured, couldn't compete in the Hell in the Cell, and ended up getting replaced by Kofi Kingston, who of course now is your WWE champion. So I think Ali winning that Money in the Bank would have been, a good way to work him back into title contention, because it seemed like that was where he was being pushed before he went down with the injury. So hopefully they'll put him back in that spot at some point, because especially with the Saudi Arabia show coming up and stuff like that, I just think that, there's a built-in storyline there with him and Kofi, with Ali kind of losing his opportunity because of injury, Kofi stepping up and obviously taking advantage of it. There's a built-in storyline with the two of them. And, like I said, with the Saudi Arabia show coming up, Ali is a proud Muslim, and I think that would, it would have made a great story for the Saudi audience. I'm not saying that the WWE would have had to make that, first and foremost in the storyline, but it's definitely something that they could have played on, made mention of, and it would have played great for the Saudi audience for Super Showdown coming up. But so on Raw this week, we saw the introduction of a new championship, the 24/7 championship. Can't say I'm overly impressed with this one. I like the concept, don't get me wrong. I like the concept of the 24/7 title, especially with a huge social media presence that WWE has right now. You have the potential for a match to take place literally anywhere at any time. Having impromptu matches pop up on like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or pretty much anywhere. So the 24/7 concept, I think, is a good one. The name of the title, I don't think there was a whole lot of thought put into it. It just seemed like it was possibly rushed a little bit, and the physical championship itself, I have to say, is the best word I can come up with is hideous. I'm not a fan of that belt. If there's somebody out there who likes it, hey, great. Far be it from me to begrudge anybody their opinion. It's just, it's my opinion. I do not like that championship belt. I just think it, I don't know, it looks like a kid's toy. It's just not a lot of thought put into it, I don't think. So, but it is what it is. R-Truth currently is the champion. The first one was Titus O'Neil, followed by Robert Roode, and then R-Truth. That all happened on Monday, and Truth has had it since then. So thus far, he is the longest reigning 24/7 champion. On SmackDown, saw the return of Dolph Ziggler. He is going to be the one challenging Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship at Super Showdown. Again, I thought Ali would have fit well into that role, but I'm not part of the WWE creative team, so they obviously have their own ideas. But apparently the reason Ziggler was brought in is because Kevin Owens has chosen not to make the trip to Saudi Arabia for a couple of reasons, if the online buzz is to be believed. One is just kind of showing support to Sami Zayn, who's basically banned from traveling to Saudi Arabia because of his own heritage, his Syrian heritage. And another reason is that apparently his family asked him not to go, which I find understandable. I mean, it's not the safest place in the world, so to speak, and just a lot of tension, a lot of things going on, a lot of controversy with WWE going over there anyway. So Kevin Owens making the choice to not make that trip, and who could blame him? I mean, especially if his family did ask him not to make the trip. Also not making that trip, obviously, is Sami Zayn, as I just said, and apparently Aleister Black has, not that he has chosen not to make the trip, but he has basically been told that he's not going because of some religious iconography in his tattoos that apparently would be offensive to the Saudi audience. So I mean, it is what it is. It's it's another country. They have their own laws and rules and traditions and things like that. So not too much anyone can say about that. It's WWE kind of placating to the audience and to the Saudi royal family, who is paying them to be there. So it is what it is. The probably the best story this week for WWE is NXT Takeover 25 taking place next Saturday. Looks like a phenomenal lineup as usual for NXT Takeovers. I don't think I've ever seen a bad NXT Takeover. To be honest, I mean every one of them has been outstanding. Great matches all around. And they're never overloaded like a lot of WWE pay-per-views tend to be. It's usually 4, 5, 6 matches. That's about it. This particular one looks like there are 5 matches booked for it, and I'm gonna go through those real quick right now. For the NXT Championship, we've got Johnny Gargano defending against Adam Cole. I'm looking for Adam Cole to win this one. I kind of have a feeling, it's the Undisputed Era's time, so to speak. So I'm pulling for Adam Cole in this one. Plus, I did read that Gargano has been nursing an injury, so they may take the title off of him to give him some time off. We'll have to see how that one goes. For the NXT Women's Championship, we've got Shayna Baszler defending against Io Shirai. I don't see the championship coming off of Baszler just yet. Again, I mean, she, a lot of people made the comparison with Ronda Rousey kind of being the female Brock Lesnar, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if there is a female Brock Lesnar, I think it's Shayna Baszler. She's kind of that indestructible, unbeatable MMA type monster on the women's side. So and I see them probably keeping that title on her for a while longer. So I'm picking Shayna Baszler to retain in this one against Io Shirai. For the vacant NXT Tag Team Championships, we've got Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch versus the Street Profits versus the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, versus the Forgotten Sons of Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler in a ladder match for the vacant titles. Again, with this one, I think it's the Undisputed Era's time, so I am picking O'Reilly and Fish to win this one. For the North American Championship, Velveteen Dream is defending against Tyler Breeze. I'd like to see Breeze win this one, but I don't know if he's back in NXT full-time or if this is kind of a one-off thing, so we'll have to see what happens. But I'm actually going to pick Velveteen Dream to retain in this one. And then we've got a singles match with Roderick Strong versus Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle kind of been a thorn in the side of the Undisputed Era the last couple of weeks. I'm picking Roderick Strong in this one. Like I said, I think this is the Undisputed Era's time right now, so I'm looking for Cole to take the NXT Championship. O'Reilly and Fish to take the tag team titles, mostly because they didn't, they've been champions before, but they didn't have a really good run with those titles because Bobby Fish got injured, and that's when Roderick Strong kind of had to step in, and it was O'Reilly and Strong as the tag team champs. So I'm looking for Fish and O'Reilly to win this one. But yeah, and I would think sooner rather than later you're going to see Roderick Strong going after the North American Championship for Undisputed Era to kind of control all of the gold in NXT. That was their stated goal at the beginning of the year. So I think now is the time for that to happen. So we'll have to see how that all turns out at the NXT Takeover 25. Like I said, coming up next Saturday. So, getting into the big story this week, of course, I am talking about All Elite Wrestling's first ever pay-per-view event, Double or Nothing, just took place last night. And I said it online a few times last night, and I'm going to say it again right here. I'm going on record with it. This was the best wrestling pay-per-view of the year so far, in my opinion, bar none. I've seen a lot of people that disagree and things like that, and we'll get into that later. But before I get into the match results and everything, AEW has signed Dean Malenko as a producer and a coach. So that's a big pickup for them. And there was also a lot made of an ad that ran on TNT during the NBA playoffs for Double or Nothing. And, that's huge. an advertisement for a wrestling event during a major mainstream sporting event. I mean, it's the NBA playoffs. It's one of the most watched sporting events in the United States. So to run an ad for a wrestling pay-per-view, in the middle of a game, live, is huge. And people are kind of picking at little things about it. Like Marv Albert was the one who read the advertisement, mispronounced Chris Jericho's name. Marv Albert's not a wrestling guy. I'm willing to bet he has no clue who Chris Jericho is. I'm willing to bet he has no clue who Roman Reigns is, or anything like that. He probably, the extent of his wrestling knowledge, I'm guessing, is probably Hulk Hogan. And that's probably about it. So he mispronounced the guy's name. Not a big deal. I mean, should maybe somebody have gone over that, that read with him before it was put on live TV? Yeah, maybe. Okay, make sure his name is Jericho. But, it is what it is. Bottom line, AEW was advertised on a major TV network during a major mainstream sporting event. That's not something you typically see. And then, of course, people are saying, oh, well, it's on TNT. That's AEW's network. Well, yeah, where would you like to see them advertise? I mean, you don't typically see television stations advertising shows or events for other stations unless they're under the same umbrella. Like, you'll see advertisements for Disney on ABC networks, obviously, because they're owned by the same company. So, but you're not going to see an advertisement for AEW or Double or Nothing on Fox or something like that. That's not really how it works. Networks advertise for their own programming. So, I'm not really sure what to say about that other than duh. But, I mean, look at it this way. When's the last time you saw an ad for a WWE event or a WWE television show on any major sporting event? I'm going to go out on a limb and say pretty much never. I'm aware that's probably going to change coming up here very quickly with WWE making the move to Fox. You're going to see ads running, on Fox and Fox Sports probably during NFL games and Major League Baseball and NASCAR and whatever else they show on Fox. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of advertising for it because Fox has put a lot of money into this. They want eyes on the product. So, yeah, they're going to, I'm sure, be pushing WWE very heavily on their other programming. But, for people to downplay the significance of AEW getting ad time during the NBA playoffs, I mean, it's not just TNT doing that. The NBA had to sign off on that too, so that should tell you something right there. So anyway, let's get into Double or Nothing last night. Like I said, for me, best wrestling pay-per-view of the year so far. And it was, top to bottom, fantastic matches. On the pre-show, we had two matches. We had a singles match between Kip Sabian and Sammy Guevara. Just a great opening match, great way to showcase these two young guys. And see, that to me is what a pre-show is all about. If you're going to have matches on your kickoff show, use it to showcase your young talent, your up-and-comers, your newer guys, not to, use it as a vessel to just get everybody on the show or to, to have defenses for titles that you don't care about. Like in WWE's case, you almost always see the Cruiserweight Championship on the kickoff show, which I think is kind of a slap in the face to those guys because, this is supposed to be a major championship. It's a top title for that brand. So why should it not be on the main pay-per-view card? If you're going to have matches on your kickoff show for WWE, use it to showcase, again, younger up-and-coming talent. Throw some NXT guys out there, some NXT UK guys, some of the younger, newer 205 Live guys, and just let them go out there and put on some great matches like Kip Sabian and Sammy Guevara did last night. It was a fantastic 10-minute match with these guys, and this was the shortest match of the show. It was 10 minutes. So, that there was no, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't, and I'm talking about the show in general, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't, you didn't have any squash matches. You had guys going out there and given the time to do their thing because, it was a 4-hour show and it wasn't overloaded with matches. From the beginning of the pre-show, it's at 6 p.m. Chicago time, to the end of the main show at 11 p.m. Chicago time, you had 9 matches. That's pretty much perfect. And so the other match on the pre-show now was the Casino Battle Royale, and that I like the concept of this. It was a little bit Royal Rumble, kind of a little bit of War Games in a way, with 5 guys, 5-man, not really teams, but 5 guys coming out at a time. Then you had that last the Joker wild card spot, whatever you want to call it, which was Adam Page, who ended up being the winner and earned himself a spot in the first ever AEW World Championship match. And he will be facing the winner of the Chris Jericho Kenny Omega match. We'll get to that one a little bit later. Moving on to the main show, we started off with a 6-man tag team match. SoCal Uncensored, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky going up against the Strong Hearts from the OWE organization from China, and that team was Shima, T-Hawk, and El Lindemann. Fantastic match with these guys. Now, SoCal Uncensored has been over in China working with these guys the last couple weeks. I'm sure, getting to know them and working on timing and stuff, because obviously there's a language barrier there, so there's going to be, it presents a challenge in working a match. So I'm sure that was part of the reason they were over there, to kind of work together, get a feel for each other and things like that. And they ended up having a fantastic match. SoCal Uncensored was victorious in that one. Then we had what originally started out as a triple threat match and turned into a fatal 4-way with the women. Was originally supposed to be Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, and Kylie Ray, and at the last minute, Brandy Rhodes decided to throw a little curveball in there, added Awesome Kong to the match. First time seeing Awesome Kong in a wrestling ring in quite a while. Definitely a welcome surprise. The crowd went nuts for that one. Britt Baker did come out on top in this one. 11 minutes and 10 seconds. Like I said, they gave these matches the time they deserved, the time they needed, so nobody had to go out there and rush through. They let them go out there and tell a story, and it was just a fantastic match with these 4. Then we had a tag team match with best friends Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta against Angelico and Jack Evans. Again, great tag team match. The best friends were victorious in this one, but the tag team division in AEW is no joke. I mean, this is going to be, it's not going to be like WWE, where tag team wrestling is kind of an afterthought with these kind of cut and paste thrown together tag teams. These are legit teams who have been working together for a good amount of time, and I'm really liking the way that the AEW tag team division is looking. I can't wait to see them unveil a tag team title and see how that's going to work out, how they're going to crown their first champions. Then we had a 6-woman tag team match with 6 Japanese superstars, and I apologize if I get these names wrong, because I honestly was not familiar with any of these women except for Aja Kong, who I had obviously seen previously during the Monday Night Wars. She had some matches in WCW, but it was Aja Kong, Yuka Sakazaki, and Emi Sakura versus Hikaru Shida, Ryo Abe, and Ryo Mizunami. Again, great match. Some great storytelling, and there were people complaining about some botches during some of these matches, and I think number one, it comes from in the case of like the best friends versus Angelico and Jack Evans, I think it just comes from unfamiliarity. They haven't worked together a whole lot, at least not that I've seen. But in other cases, you got to take into account with some of these guys and girls that this is the first time they've been on an event of this size with this large of an audience, and I'm sure nerves come into play. So I think you have to give a little leeway, because even WWE people botch every now and then, sometimes even more than that. So for you to key on tiny little spots, I'm sorry, you're just you're nitpicking is what you're doing, and you're just looking for something to complain about, and that's pretty much all I can say about it. But yeah, the 6-woman tag team match, I was really impressed with some of these younger women that were out there. I'm hoping it's not real clear if any of them are actually signed with AEW or if this was just kind of a one-off thing. But obviously we'll see going forward when their women's division starts to develop. I'm sure they're going to have a women's championship at some point. So I'm hoping that at least some of these women that were in the six woman match will be a permanent part of AEW. Next, we had the one that I was looking forward to more than anything else, a singles match between Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes. I mean, this was probably the most emotional match of the night. A lot of, yeah, just some great storytelling going on. Saw quite a lot of blood coming from Dustin. He took a shot in the corner to the exposed turnbuckle, and then took a shot from Brandy Rhodes with Cody's cane. But yeah, he was yeah, it was very, very old school. The whole brother versus brother thing. But like Cody had previously said, it was generation versus generation. He said he wanted to kind of kill the Attitude Era, and he I think succeeded with that last night. Now, a lot of people buzzing today about Cody's entrance. And of course, the first thing everybody saw before Cody entered the arena was a throne at the top of the stage with the skulls and the Iron Cross. Everybody knows what that's in reference to. Of course, that is Triple H, kind of his trademark WrestleMania type entrance with the big throne and everything, the King of Kings and all that. And then, of course, Brandy pulling the sledgehammer out from under the ring, again, a la Triple H. Cody taking that sledgehammer and basically destroying that throne, and it was very, very symbolic. And I saw a lot of people saying online, and I said to myself, "Ooh, shots had been fired in the war between WWE and AEW," and it was like Cody said, it's not necessarily Triple H himself. It's about that generation, the Attitude Era, and also him, kind of saying, like he mentioned in the press conference afterwards, he's first and foremost, he's a wrestler. He's an EVP of the company, but he's not ready to step away from the ring the way that Triple H has. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people were expecting him to do. So it's just him saying, that this isn't going to be me. I'm not going to be the one to just show up once or twice a year and that's it. But it was an obvious shot at the WWE, and I think it added to the show. I mean, they could have. I think it could have been. It could have been much worse than it was, but I think it was, like I said, it was very symbolic, and I think it served a purpose. It wasn't gratuitous, and it like I said, it served its purpose. It got the message across. As far as the match itself with Cody and Dustin, like I said, it was a very old school type match. A lot of emotions. People in the crowd chanting for Dusty, their father, and it was just it to me, it was the match of the night. I really can't put into words, because I grew up as a Dusty Rhodes fan, to see his two boys in there putting on a match that Dusty himself would have been proud to see and proud to be a part of. It was just it was magic. It's the best word I can come up with for it, and that's but that's my opinion. I know some people didn't care for it, saying, "Oh, Dustin's too old," and things like that. And if that's the case, I think you're focusing on the wrong thing, and I don't think you fully get it, and that's okay. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But like I said, Cody versus Dustin, to me, the match of the night. Cody was victorious, and at the end of the match, Dustin was in the process of taking his boots off in the middle of the ring, which is symbolic in wrestling of a wrestler retiring. And Cody got back in the ring, basically told him, "No, you're not retiring here, because I have a tag team match against the Young Bucks at the Fyter Fest that they have coming up, and I want you as my partner." So, and obviously Dustin accepted. The spot itself was very reminiscent of when of the speech that Dusty made to Dustin in WCW when Dustin needed a partner to go against Arn Anderson, when Arn Anderson had stabbed Dustin in the back. When he Cody basically saying, "I don't need a partner, I don't need a friend, I need my big brother." And it was it was just a really cool moment, really, like I said, harken back to a Dusty promo, and just a moment of the night, in my opinion. Then moving on from there, we had for the AAA Tag Team Championship, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Ray Phoenix. Yeah, wow. Just is the only thing I can say about this. The Young Bucks did retain, which a lot of people seem to have a problem with, saying, "Oh, of course the Bucks put themselves over, booked themselves to win," things like that. I don't think people understand the fact that AAA still has control over the booking for their championships. This was a AAA sanctioned match for the AAA tag team titles, so obviously AAA wants the Bucks to hold on to those belts for a little while longer. Now, my guess is they want them to probably hold them until their Triple Mania event, which will be coming up this summer, and drop the belts probably back to Phoenix and Pentagon, or possibly to a different team in Mexico at their big event. So it gets more eyes on Triple H. It gets eyes that might are on Triple H, on Triple A, excuse me, but some eyes that might not be familiar with Triple A, might not be familiar with Lucha Libre in general. Gets hopefully gets some curiosity going, and say, hey, maybe I should check this other company out that AEW is kind of hyping. So I think it's good for both companies. So, but yeah, the Young Bucks did retain the title. One of the best tag team matches I've seen in years, quite honestly. The Bucks and the Lucha Brothers, to me, are the two best tag teams in the world, and that's not taking anything away from some of the top teams in WWE. I mean, I love the Usos, I love the Revival, the Bar, which apparently isn't a tag team anymore. Went from one of those cut and paste thrown together teams to being a phenomenal tag team. So I'm not taking anything away from those guys. I'm just saying that of all the great tag teams that are in wrestling right now, these are the two best. They're the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. And the Bucks did retain, but I highly doubt this is the last match we'll see between the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. The main event of the night, of course, Alpha versus Omega 2, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. Chris Jericho's entrance for the night was really cool, in my opinion. It kind of went through the different personas of Jericho. We saw the Lionheart, we saw the List, we saw the light up jacket, and that kind of things. And obviously his current persona, which is kind of the arrogant, rock and roll type. I'm Mr. Everything, I'm the best in the world, and things like that. And Jericho, it doesn't matter how old Jericho is, doesn't matter how long he's been around. He is one, kind of like The Undertaker, who can reinvent himself and keep himself relevant. And he's changed his style over the years to prolong his career, and he's still one of the best in the world, no doubt about it. I don't care how old he is. I mean, you look at other guys that have wrestled into their late 40s and 50s, and Jericho blows them all away as far as I'm concerned, because he's still, he can still get in there, and he's as good as he has ever been. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, but that's just kind of the way it is. But and Kenny Omega, I mean, what can be said about Omega that hasn't already been said? For my money, Kenny Omega, the best wrestler in the world right now. And again, I'm not taking anything away from anybody else. I'm not taking anything away from AJ or Finn Balor or anybody. It's just, of all the phenomenal wrestlers that are out there, to me, Kenny Omega is number one. He is the best wrestler in the world, period. And even for me, that's kind of a tough call, because I'm a huge fan of Kazuchika Okada, and I put him right up at the same level with Kenny Omega. So for me, it's probably 1A and 1B, because I can't really say, I can't pick who's better as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, Kenny Omega, the top guy as far as I'm concerned. But Chris Jericho was victorious in this match, so it will be Chris Jericho versus Hangman Page to crown the first ever AEW World Champion. I'm assuming that title is going to be decided at one of their other pay-per-views coming up prior to their TV starting in October. I'm sure they want to go into TV with an established world champion. So I would look for over the next 4 or 5 months for AEW to be announcing that match between Hangman Page and Chris Jericho. And I'm going to make my pick on that one right now. I'm going to say Hangman Page is going to be your first AEW World Champion. I just don't think Jericho, as much as I love Chris Jericho, I just got done talking about how great I think he is. I just don't think he'd be the right pick for your first World Champion. I'm not saying he can't ever be AEW World Champion, because I'm sure he will at some point. But I think if you're starting a new company and you want to say we're different, we're new, we're, the alternative, we're not going to do the same old stuff that you keep seeing with the other guys, then you need to have somebody new as the face of your company. And for AEW, I think that person is Hangman Page. So that's my pick for the first AEW World Heavyweight Champion, or excuse me, World Champion. They don't specify heavyweight, which I like. It's just AEW World Champion. So into some of the surprises from last night. Big one right at the end of the show after the Jericho and Omega match. We saw the debut of Jon Moxley, who, according to Cody Rhodes, has signed a multi-year deal with AEW, so he will be full-time with them, which is awesome. Came out, attacked Kenny Omega, hit a huge spot off of the staging area, putting Omega basically through part of that staging area, with using an attitude adjustment of all moves to do that. But yeah, so it was just a really cool debut. Crowd went nuts for it. So Jon Moxley is a part of AEW. Had a surprise appearance from Bret the Hitman Hart. Came out to unveil the AEW World Heavyweight Championship belt. The belt to me looks amazing. They had been saying it's going to kind of harken back to the old Mid-South North American Championship, which it does, as far as, the general design of it, but it's not a carbon copy of that belt. It is, a more modern type design, but as far as the size of it, it's a 5-plate design with the plates kind of not overlapping each other, but it has that effect. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful championship belt. I said it online, it's the best looking belt since the big gold belt, because the WWE championships right now are kind of cookie cutter. I like the fact that the men's top title and the women's top title look the same, have the same basic design, because it to me, just visually kind of puts them on the same level. They have their own uniqueness as far as like coloring and things like that, but the overall design of them is similar, so I like that. But it's just, I don't know, it doesn't wow me, I guess would be the best way to put it. I don't dislike the WWE belts, it's just I think they, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of a cookie cutter design. They just kind of use, that particular design for pretty much everything. The best belts right now to me in WWE are the UK tag team titles. I love the designs of those championships because they look different than everything else WWE has. I mean, as far as NXT goes, every belt in NXT looks the same, and there's no uniqueness there. But I love the design of this belt. A lot of people online saying, "Oh, it's ugly" and things like that. And if that's your opinion, that's fine. But where I have a problem is when people say, "Oh, it's ugly," and if you think different, you're stupid. I've actually saw people online saying that. I'm like, who made you the authority? Who are you to tell somebody else what they can or can't like? I personally, I like the AEW belt. If you don't, that's totally your decision, and I respect that. Say it's ugly all you want. I mean, it's your opinion. It's not to your, not to your taste when it comes to championship belts. That's fine. Perfect, perfectly. Like I said, I respect your opinion 100%. It's when you start telling me that my opinion's crap because it goes against what you think that there's an issue. But we'll let that one go for right now. Another appearance was Shawn Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger, in the Battle Royal. Of course, entered at number 10. A little symbolic there. Obviously didn't win the Battle Royal, put on a pretty good showing, but had, like I said before, the debut of Awesome Kong. I'm curious to see if this was like a one-time appearance or if it's going to be, if she's going to be a regular on AEW. We'll have to find that out going forward. An interesting note from Cody Rhodes in the post-show press conference, apparently Tony Khan himself produced the show as far as timing out the matches and things like that. So, for his first time, doing something like that, I gotta say I'm impressed. He did a damn good job if that was the case. Now, I'm sure he obviously had help. He's never produced a wrestling show before. But if he was the lead producer on the show, hey, kudos to him. He did awesome. Some other stuff mentioned by Cody during his post show interviews. I think it's pretty much universally known by now. Their TV show is going to be TV 14, which is great. It allows for a little more leeway than what we see with WWE as far as like blood and a little more risque type content. So, and Cody may mention the fact TV is going to be TV. It's going to be very sports centric, like an actual sport event, like an NBA game. You'll occasionally hear players on the court swearing or something like that, and they just kind of move the camera off of them. It's not it's not a big deal, and he's basically alluding to the fact that AEW is going to be the same thing. The TV is going to be a little more realistic, not so scripted. So you're going to see and hear some stuff on there that that you don't hear or see on WWE TV. And then when it comes to pay-per-views, they're gonna they can amp it up a little bit because it's pay-per-view. It's not broadcast television, so you can do more than like we saw last night during the pay-per-view. Saw a lot of people getting flipped off. So Cody even said maybe a little too much, but you'll see stuff like that on a pay-per-view. You might hear some more colorful language, quote unquote, on a pay-per-view because it's pay-per-view. You expect it to be so you expect it to have the volume turned up a little more than just during the regular weekly television show. He said he even had spoken to Tony Khan about doing a pay-per-view where they kind of ramp it up even more. So it sounds almost like the way he was talking about it, almost like harkening back to an old ECW pay-per-view possibly. So I'd be very curious to see how that goes, because I think it's something they could pull off very well just based on some of the matches that we saw last night. Cody also mentioned they're not going to be doing pay-per-views every month, which I think is fantastic, especially since it is the more traditional pay-per-view format. It's not like WWE Network where people are paying $10 a month and they can see every pay-per-view that's put out. People are going to have to pay individually for these, at least for the time being. And he said flat out, it's $50 a month. We're asking these people to come out of their pocket with a substantial amount of money. $50 is not small change, or at least it's not to me. But it's doable for me, especially if they're only going to have like maybe 4 to 6 pay-per-views a year, So I think that's smart on his part, and we'll have to see how that plays out. I've always said I think 4 to 6 pay-per-views a year is the perfect number because it keeps them special. It's not just like, because I think most people would agree a lot of WWE pay-per-views nowadays, it's not really any different than an episode of Raw. It doesn't have that big fight feel. It doesn't feel special anymore. So I think AEW is going to try to bring that back. Another announcement made last night is that AEW is coming back to Chicago this Labor Day weekend with another big event called All Out in the same venue where they held All In last year at the Sears Center just outside of Chicago. And part of that weekend will also be StarCast 3, so that will be over Labor Day weekend. It'll be, I believe it's at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here in Chicago. Same venues as last year. Yeah, I can't wait. Tickets go on sale for StarCast this coming Wednesday, and tickets for All Out go on sale June 14th. I will be attending both, so yeah, Labor Day weekend's gonna be a very busy one, but a very fun one for me and anybody else who can make their way to Chicago. So let's get into some of the online buzz that's been going on the last couple of days. I already made mention, a lot of WWE fans kind of hating on the belt, the AEW World title. Oh, it's ugly, it's hard to read, it looks like the New Japan title, which it doesn't. It looks nothing like the New Japan title, other than it's a 5-plate belt. I mean, beyond that, there's no similarities between the two whatsoever as far as size, shape, color, or anything else. So not sure. I think people are kind of grasping at straws, just looking for something to hate. Some people actually saying the pay-per-view was boring. if you say it was boring, I'm sorry you weren't watching it then, because there was nothing boring about this pay-per-view. Every one of these matches, at least for me, kept me interested. I'm curious to know what specifically was boring. What did you find not entertaining or not, you know, what didn't grab your attention? What didn't you like about it? I would love for somebody to be specific and, objectively specific, not just saying it was boring or hating on something simply because you're a WWE fan and you refuse to give anything else a chance, because that's just, very close-minded. But again, complaining about no storylines. Well, it's their first show. Where do you want the storylines to come from? Do you want them to spend the first hour laying down groundwork for a storyline, then the last 2 hours rushing through matches to play those storylines out? Their television show hasn't started yet. I mean, that they, if you want some type of background, go back and watch Being the Elite on YouTube, or watch The Road to Double or Nothing on the Nightmare Family YouTube channel. And there were some storylines. They're not heavy storylines as far as, it's about the in-ring product. This particular show was about the in-ring product, to establish, hey, this is a talent we have, look at what they can do. And that was it. There was a storyline in place for the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. There was a storyline in place for Omega and Jericho, and there was a storyline in place for Cody and Dustin, for your 3 top matches on the show. And the rest of it, the other 6 matches on the show, it's you gotta, again, like I said, it's all about showcasing the talent, showcasing this new company, and saying, hey, look at, this is what we got. These are the guys that we've signed. Look at what they can do. And I think they did a damn good job of that. People saying it was too choreographed and it was all flippy wrestling. Again, you obviously weren't watching, because it wasn't all about the high flying acrobatic stuff. It was, there was a lot of great actual wrestling going on, not just high spots. Yes, there was a fair share of high spots like you see in any wrestling show, but it was much more than that. So again, if that's your complaint, that it was choreographed and flippy and things like that, you didn't watch. You're just pulling stuff out of thin air. As far as more people complaining about a bunch of no-name mid-card wrestlers, just because you don't know who they are doesn't mean they're no-name nobodies. The people in attendance obviously knew who they were. The people that paid their $50 to watch on TV knew who most of these people were. It appears that there were actually some people out there who took $50 of their own money out of their pocket and paid for this pay-per-view just so they could come online and complain about it later, which to me is, why waste your money like that? If you don't care to see it, then don't watch it. If you're just a WWE fan, that's great. If that's all you've ever known, that's all you ever care to know as far as pro wrestling, then great, stick to it. But if you're going to spend your own hard-earned money to watch a pay-per-view, at least have enough of an open mind to give it a chance and understand that this is something different. It's not going to be like a WWE show. This is going to be a complete departure from that. It's going to be different. You're not going to know who all the guys are if the only thing you watch is WWE. But be open to finding out who they are, rather than just saying, I don't know who this guy is, he probably sucks. Well, that again, very closed-minded view, and for people to, just basically throw away $50 just to have something to complain about, it's just insane to me. But again, it is what it is. Again, more people saying, it's not going to last. I highly doubt that. This isn't, I don't think it's going to be some flash in the pan. They've got some serious backing, and, make no mistake, AEW is not an indie. A lot of people keep calling it an indie. It's not an indie, because, I'm sorry, companies like WWE, obviously, but New Japan, Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, these are not independent companies. Just because a company is smaller than WWE or is a brand new company like AEW, it doesn't mean it's an indie. If the company has a corporate structure, has contracted wrestlers, and has national television and pay-per-view, it's not an indie. An indie is a local promotion. Maybe they have some local television, but they have a big local fan base. They bring in, they don't have a specific set of contracted wrestlers that wrestle for them every week or every month. That's an independent promotion. But if you have, again, a corporate structure, you have contracted wrestlers, and you have weekly television and, national television and pay-per-view, that's not an indie. So AEW is not an independent company. And, a lot of people wanted to make comparisons with All In, saying All In was better and things like that. I don't think you can make a comparison with All In and Double or Nothing. I mean, yes, it was put on by the same guys, but All In was an independent show. It wasn't backed or affiliated with any major company. I mean, yes, Ring of Honor contributed to it, New Japan contributed to it, but it wasn't a Ring of Honor show, it wasn't a New Japan show, it was an independent show. That's why they were able to get the amount of talent that are under contract to other companies, because it's not like saying Brian Cage, the Impact champion, is going to go have a match on Ring of Honor. No, he was doing basically an indie booking. It was a huge indie booking, probably the biggest indie booking in the history of wrestling, but is still an indie booking. That's why they were able to get a Brian Cage or Kazuchika Okada or Ring of Honor guys, Impact guys. They couldn't do that this time because it's AEW. Now it's under a company banner. It's no longer an independent show, so you're not going to get all those diverse talents from all the big companies around the world. So, they have to work with their own talent, which they did, and they did extremely well. And, then you've got the people complaining about the pay-per-view price. Oh, it's $50 and this and that. And I'm sorry for, anybody who was willing to put out the $40 for All In. I don't think they were the ones complaining about putting on an extra $10 for Double or Nothing. If you're, complaining about putting out $50 for a pay-per-view, you obviously you've been living in the WWE bubble for too long. You've gotten too used to paying that $9.99 a month for the WWE network and getting all your pay-per-views as a part of that package. Because if you look on your cable network, I guarantee you a WWE pay-per-view is just as expensive, probably more in most cases. The Money in the Bank pay-per-view last week, at least on my cable service, was $54.99. For somebody who chose to order it that way, that if they didn't have the network. And obviously people are still buying them, because if they weren't, WWE wouldn't be offering them in that form. They'd put them exclusively on the network. But people are obviously still willing to put out the $55 a pop for WWE pay-per-views. So you really can't complain too much about AEW's pricing, because they're right in line with WWE, which is the standard for wrestling pay-per-views. So I don't think there's too much else to be said about that. And then people want to compare it to NXT again. I mean, I don't really think you should compare AEW to anything. Judge it on its own merits. I mean, they've said they're not trying to be WWE. They're not trying to be NXT either. NXT is the best wrestling show under the WWE umbrella right now. But, I don't think it's fair to compare them to anybody, especially when they've had one show. Let them get their feet on the ground, and let them get running and going with this stuff, and start establishing stars and creating storylines, and see what kind of product they're going to put out before you try to make any judgments or comparisons or say one is better than the other. And probably the biggest complaints I saw online was about the elite guys, specifically Cody and the Bucks, putting themselves over. Obviously, Kenny Omega didn't go over; he lost his match to Chris Jericho. But as far as Cody, I mean, I think anybody who followed along on the Road to Double or Nothing on their YouTube page, I think it's kind of obvious that Cody was going to win this. I mean, he said, it's about generation versus generation. It's not so much the brother versus brother storyline. He said this is, he wants to kill the Attitude Era. because he feels like the Attitude Era is what's been holding down guys from his generation. They weren't allowed to. It wasn't an even playing field, put it that way. The guys from the Attitude Era pretty much could get away with a whole lot of stuff, and the guys after that, once WWE went public and became PG, they were really kind of handcuffed, and through no fault of their own. It's just they didn't have the same type of opportunities to do the same kind of things the guys from the Attitude Era did, but yet they still get so many comparisons to the Attitude Era, and it's not a fair comparison. So Cody, his whole thing, I want to kill the Attitude Era, and arguably Dustin as Goldust was, in my view, the start of the Attitude Era. I mean, you look back through the history of WWE, at the time when Goldust first came along, he was really the first kind of edgy, overtly kind of, sexualized type of character. I mean, you had hints and, innuendo of that kind of thing before with people like Adrian Adonis, even going all the way back to Gorgeous George back in the 50s. But like I said, Goldust was the first one that was kind of overt, in your face, to try and make people uncomfortable. And that to me is what the Attitude Era was all about. It was in your face, it was overt, nothing held back. And, so to me, Goldust was arguably one of the starting points of the Attitude Era. So I think, the story that was told in this match was really, really good. And yeah, so I think it was a foregone conclusion. Yes, Cody's going to win this match. I mean, it's AEW kind of putting the Attitude Era at rest and saying, okay, we're done talking about this. Now we're going to do our thing and move forward. As far as the Young Bucks going over, I mean, the Young Bucks, I mean, yes, they're EVPs of the company. I'm sure they have a say-so in the booking and things like that. But this particular match, I said it a little while ago, it was for the AAA Tag Team Championships. So the ending of this match was booked by AAA, like it or not. So obviously AAA wants those titles on the Bucks. Like I said a little while ago, again, probably up until their Triple Mania event, I would look for the Bucks to lose those championships in Mexico during Triple Mania. More than likely, that's probably what's going to happen. So that's pretty much it as far as that goes. Now I'm going to talk a little bit on the flip side of this about the AEW fans. And which I am an AEW fan now, especially after last night, after seeing that show. But I'm not one who's going to automatically jump to saying, oh, WWE's in trouble and this and that. I've said it before on this show. WWE's not going anywhere. Not anytime soon. They're one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, and, they're everywhere. And they're not going to go away anytime soon. AEW's not going to run them out of business. They're not trying to run them out of business. Are they trying to be competition? Yes, I'm sure they are. I mean, competition is healthy. But just because you're competing, whether it's for ratings or whatever it might be, doesn't mean you're trying to put the other guy out of business. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. The WWE's not in trouble. Are they aware? Yes, I'm sure that they are. I mean, there were WWE superstars tweeting last night that were obviously watching the show. So, they're well aware that AEW's out there. And, is it going to maybe make them sit up and take notice and say, okay, we've been kind of resting on our laurels for a little while here. Maybe we need to, step up our game a little bit. Hopefully that's what's going to happen, and WWE is going to elevate their game and start putting out a better product. Maybe putting more time into developing characters and developing stories, and not just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. So and I think that's the best thing that anybody can hope for, is that AEW is going to succeed and become a viable competitor with WWE, and that WWE is going to step up their game to keep up with AEW as far as putting out fresh storylines and stuff that people want to see and things like that. That I think is the best possible outcome, because WWE is not going to go out of business. I don't want to see AEW go the way of WCW. After last night, I am crazy excited about how where AEW is going to go from here. I can't wait until Labor Day weekend to be a part of StarCast and the All Out pay-per-view, like I was last year with All In. So, I mean, sky's the limit for AEW right now. I think they need to, the couple little shots they took at WWE yesterday, they were fun. I think people try to read too much into it though, but it was fun. It was just kind of AEW saying, "Hey, we're here," So you guys should wake up and take notice. So I think they got that message across. But I'm excited to see where they're going to go from here because there's no limit to what they can do. They have the talent, they have the management, they have the finances, and they just need to stay on track and be smart and not worry about what WWE is doing. Like not go the way of WCW or TNA, as far as don't pay too much attention to what WWE is doing. Don't try to emulate what WWE is doing. Do your thing. Be a wrestling company. Don't try to be an entertainment company like WWE is. And if they stay on that track, I think they are going to have again, sky's the limit as far as what they can do. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the AEW pay-per-view yesterday, the ones who watched it. For anybody who didn't watch it, I highly recommend going back and checking it out because it was, like I said, for me, the best wrestling pay-per-view of the year so far. I can't say enough good things about it. So, definitely go back and check it out if you haven't had the opportunity. If you did see it yesterday, go back and watch it again, because I know I did. I've already watched it twice. So, it was a fantastic show, and I can't wait to see where AEW is going to go. So, make sure you check out the show next week, again, right here on Twitch at 3 p.m. Central Time. And, of course, afterwards on all the usual podcast platforms, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, also on YouTube. And make sure you're following on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and LinkedIn at CatchHookShoot. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/catchhookshoot, and our Pro Wrestling Tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/catchhookshoot. Got some pretty cool stuff on both of those, so I hope you guys will go and check it out. Buy yourself a shirt, and support the show. I appreciate everybody who watches and listens, and like I said, support the show. Check out the Patreon, check out the Pro Wrestling Tees store. Next week I will be back with results of Takeover 25, and also going down the card lineup for Super Showdown coming up. I believe it's on June 6th or 7th. I can't even remember right now off the top of my head. June 7th, Friday. So I'll be breaking down that card, giving my previews, predictions, that kind of fun stuff. So, until then, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the show. Hope you're liking, following on all the social media. And again, check out the Patreon and Pro Wrestling Tees websites. If you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. So, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys soon.